Welcome to this strategy-rich edition of The One Thing podcast, hosted by Ron Sheets. On each episode, Ron introduces you to the amazingly successful entrepreneurs from his Rolodex who reveal the simple truths behind the one marketing strategy they rely on to produce extraordinary results. Each episode is guaranteed to expose you to a proven approach for producing high-value and highly profitable business. Welcome to this episode of The One Thing podcast.
Hey everybody, it's Ron Sheets and welcome to another edition of the One Thing Business Podcast. I'm going to start out today's episode a little different than I normally do. I have a guest for us today, but before we actually get into that, I want to talk about the state of the economy as to, what I think or what I see people's perception of what the state of the economy is right now. It's important as small business owners, as entrepreneurs, that we be in the right frame of mind about this. So what I'm getting and working with and talking to clients, private clients that I'm working with, that I'm getting this feeling, and some are articulating it, that their clients, their customers, and their members are talking about what I'll term and borrow as an affordability crisis, meaning people are saying things are expensive. We're not able to afford the things that we want to go and do. So I want to address this elephant in the room before we get started, because it does have relevance to what we're going to talk about today. So I want to quote a few numbers because data is important. If you're not tracking data and you're not looking at data for the reality of it, you can get a false sense of insecurity or security. So let me quote some numbers for recent quarters, and I will be completely transparent. I'm borrowing these from Dan Kennedy on a seminar that Dan did that I was involved in recording. So I'm borrowing it from him, and I've verified these numbers, so they're accurate. So in the recent quarter numbers, we're currently experiencing a 5.68% growth in GDP. So that means that our economy growth is up 5.68% in a 1.6% inflation. So inflation's down. Inflation's pretty low. On top of that, people are experiencing a 3.5% to 4% wage increase. There's new tax breaks that are being released. The no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security. There's an increase in the child tax credit. It's actually doubled, which I'm kind of bummed about because now my kids have just gotten out of that and I don't get to take advantage of it. So the bottom line is that people have more spendable cash. They have more money in their pocket. So why are people feeling this money squeeze? It's largely in part to people listening to and believing what's going on in mass media, what's being reported about in mass media. So I want to quote two quotes that are very, very instrumental in guiding my thinking that I'm always coming back to. You're welcome to borrow these to help kind of get your head out of what Zig Ziglar used to call stinking thinking. So the first was from my first business mentor. And if you read the book Pendulum, there is this 40-year swing in economy. It repeats itself. And at one point in time, we were in this bad economy. And my mentor had said to us as a sales team, he goes, "We choose not to participate in the bad economy," which is an important mindset to take because you control how you think, what you think. It's not the media. The second quote, this is my by far favorite quote. A client said to me, we all want to achieve success. Success is a state of mind. It's not a place in time. So again, it goes to the same quote from my mentor. We choose not to participate in the bad economy. Success is a state of mind, not a place in time. It's not something we reach. It's what goes on in our head in the 6 inches between our ears. So To quote Dr. Robert Cialdini, who is the author of the book Influence, if you haven't read it, you must. In there, he writes about that 95% of our population are followers and 5% are leaders. And you put yourself in one of those categories. You either opt to believe the stuff that's being put in front of you without doing due diligence, without doing research, and you become part of the 95% of the population. Or you can choose your own thinking, choose your own path, and implement the things that work, and you can become part of the 5% of leaders. So how do we do that? And we're getting to it, so I appreciate you sticking with me. Right now, we're in a proof economy. People need reassurance. They need testimonials. They need journey stories. They need case studies. They need guarantees and assurance. They need to know what the clear process is. What happens next? If I'm going to purchase something, what's my process? What can I expect? So they need more proof. What's a way of being able to create proof? Content, education, information. So we're in an educational and informational economy. So now that brings me to the subject of today's episode, and that is the rise in the use of podcasting in businesses by entrepreneurs and small businesses. So let's start with the definition, or at least my definition. What is podcasting? Podcasting really is relationship marketing with a microphone. That's all it is. So again, some data, because we're going to get to you, those that are watching. Are you doing a podcast? Are you not doing a podcast? So here's some numbers. That it's growing. It's something, again, you choose to participate in or you choose not to participate, and you become either the 95% or the 5%. In 2024, there were over 3 million podcasts based on an indexing service that tracks active podcasts. So that's in major platforms like iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon podcasts. There's a whole slew of them. As of this recording today, there's over 4.5 million tracked podcasts, including this one. This one's indexed on all of those popular formats on those platforms. And by the end of this year, 2026, an estimated 5 million podcasts are going to exist. So that number is increasing 40 to 50% annually. You either participate or not participate. It's your choice. So do you have a podcast? You're listening to this one. You're watching this one. In fact, 55% of Americans listen or watch podcasts at least once a month. 34 to 40% listen or watch them weekly. That means weekly. So this isn't something that's a occasional sampling they go look at. It's part of their habit, right? It's like when Amazon Prime Video or Netflix, they release a series. They don't release them episodically, one week after another. Some do, but many of them are just releasing the whole thing, and people go and binge watch it. Well, this is binge podcasting. And the number one reason that people consume podcasts is because they want to learn something. They want to learn something. People don't open up a podcast thinking, geez, I hope I'm going to buy something today. They consume it to learn, to improve, to stay informed, or to feel connected, which is largely, I'll bet, why you're here watching this one today and have been following the One Thing Business podcast. So now, thank you for that. It's a long runway for me to get going, but I thought it was important for you to understand some of the data and proof behind what we're going to talk about today. So today, let me bring him up on the screen here. You can see him partially, but let me bring him up on the screen today. My guest is Tom Runfola. And I met Tom and his wife, MJ, about 10 years ago. And Tom, I appreciate you being with me today, and I want you to jump in. If I don't get this right, correct me.
I'll help you out.
All right. So a little backstory. As I said, I met Tom and MJ about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more, at a marketing and growth conference for independent childcare center owners. And recently we reconnected. And how we got reconnected is that I have been sending Tom and MJ my newsletter every month for the last 10 plus years. And they reached out, got back in touch, and they were getting started in back into the childcare center business, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. So he understands small businesses at a deeper level because he's owned multiple businesses in different categories and different industries. And if there's anybody that understands the commonalities, the criteria for success in small business, it's this guy. So Tom has developed a medium that's transforming how small businesses are able to differentiate themselves in podcasting. Now, I don't want anybody to panic. It's not like you're going to have to get on like this and do podcasting. Tom has developed a very, very unique process that is extremely powerful. We're going to dig deep into that. So what he's going to show you today, what we're going to talk about, will clearly and powerfully position people so that prospects, leads that come to you in your business are going to be pre-sold. They're going to be convinced that you are the natural, trusted source, and it's going to eliminate much of the needed use of traditional selling. So, Tom, thank you. I appreciate your patience and all of that diatribe in the beginning, but thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Ron. It's great to be here. I want to say, starting out, I love small business. It's my passion. I think it's what made America great. And what you're doing here actually models what we're going to talk about today. And that is education over selling, authority over noise, depth over hype. And today, that's where successful small business is headed, in my opinion.
Well, Tom, I kind of gave a little bit of the Cliff Notes version of on the introduction that I did, but would you give viewers and listeners more of an accurate account or backstory on yourself and your experience in business? Because I just kind of touched the tip of the iceberg.
Sure, I'll be glad. I'll be glad to do that. I've been an entrepreneur for over 4 decades. I've started, scaled, and sold businesses in multiple industries, including media, marketing, legal support, personal development, video production, and early childhood education, among many others. In the past, I've had a nationally syndicated radio show about small business and the American dream called Making It. It was heard from Hawaii to New York City. My wife and I owned a modeling school at one point, a franchise sales business, a multi-level skincare company. We've had ventures in real estate, technology, the private school industry, and I was twice nominated as the National Entrepreneur of the Year. And I've got to say, I've spoken all over the country and all over the world. As you were speaking, one thing came to mind, and I was thinking about the time that I was in the Ukraine. We've heard a lot about the Ukraine in the news lately, but I can remember being there in the 1990s, and this is just as they were coming out of communism. They had just broken off from Russia at the time. And I got to speak to a lot of groups from churches to businesses to civic leaders and so on. And one incident that I remember quite clearly is I was asked to speak to a group of, quote, civic leaders. Now, remember, this country just came out of communism, and civic leaders were actually the former Communist Party. They were still running the place. It had been a very short time. And so the week before, I had this opportunity to speak to these civic leaders. I'll call them communists because that's really what they were. I had been speaking at a church, and they told me that the very week before that, that their landlords, the Communist Party, because nobody owned property there, you rented your property really from the government, had been there the week before. They came into their service and disrupted it. They were drunk. They had machine guns, and they closed down the service and made them all go home. So this is the people that I was about to speak to. And as I really didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how I was going to be received. And as I was being introduced, I had this crazy idea of what I should do. And what I did is I started speaking, and remember, I'm speaking through an interpreter, so it's a little awkward and things are a little delayed. And I got up in front of the group, and I pulled a dollar bill out of my pocket, and I said, "This is business in America. On our money, we put, in God we trust." And what I was trying to communicate is that business in America was built on values and principles that made America great. And why they hadn't experienced that is because of the repressive system they were under. So I told them about free enterprise system and entrepreneurship and the American dream, which I described also as the Ukrainian dream, because the dream of business and financial success using your own creativity and intellect is a universal dream. It's around the world. It's actually inborn into every human being, in my opinion. So everywhere I went, people wanted to know about how you become successful in business. And we are the template for the world. We are in the greatest country God has ever created in the world.
Out of all the businesses that you've been in, what's been, I hate to use the term favorite, but what's been like top on your mind?
Well, actually, it is my favorite. Out of all the businesses I've been in, by far, my favorite is the private school industry. My wife MJ and I built a successful company in the private school business, and successfully exited that business, where we owned multiple childcare centers in highly competitive markets, which I hope we'll talk about today, because I think it really feeds into to your point that you're talking about. And We exited that business after about 15 years, and we did very well, and we were very happy with it. While we were operating, we weren't the biggest, and we weren't the cheapest. And I think that's important for your audience to know. You don't have to be the biggest or the cheapest to be successful in a business. You can do very well being somewhere in between.
Yeah.
But we positioned ourselves as the trusted authority in our category, which, in my opinion, is the secret sauce of any business, being the trusted authority. Today, we help owners in these same small businesses in the education market reach their goals and dreams in that industry. But what I've learned across industries is this: business success isn't about having the best product. People get confused about that. How can I invent a better computer or whatever? It's about controlling perception, building trust, and eliminating doubt before the sales conversation ever begins. That's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said something there that is important, is controlling perception. And I want to point out, in past episodes, we've talked about this. The idea of controlling perception is not like in the Communist Party that set, is they've got to do, but it's a matter of people understanding, because there's so many options today, more so than even when you were in it. There's so many more options today, and being able to investigate them and pick them. And I won't mince any words. The challenge with that is that there's so much information, people can get locked into paralysis of analysis, meaning they don't know what they should do. I remember my mom, when she was researching buying a new car, she spent 6 months online researching. She kind of knew which one she liked, but at the end of the 6 months, I asked her, I said, well, do you know more now or less? And she goes, I know more, but I'm more confused now than ever before.
Believe that.
So Tom, I'd like to explore the childcare business more deeply, because it shares characteristics with so many other industries. It's both a B2C and a B2B, and you're providing a service that's often perceived as serving only affluent families. And something you said before is that you weren't the biggest, you weren't the cheapest. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think people, when they think about, I'm going to go take my child to a childcare center, that's only for the rich and famous, which makes pricing, margins, and profit really critical elements if you're not just to the rich and famous. So, and would you say that somebody looking to place their child, is that a logical decision that they will make, or is that an emotional decision?
Well, it's first an emotional decision, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Contrary to what you might think, the biggest hurdle wasn't demand. Demand was always there. People are still having babies every day, and they're not all rich and famous. And in most families, both mom and dad have to work. So there'll always be demand. The real hurdle we found was uncertainty. Parents don't, much like your mom buying her car,
Yeah.
uncertainty in any important decision is often there. Parents don't wake up wondering if they need childcare. I mean, if you have children and both parents work and you don't have another adult in the home like grandma or Aunt Betty, you're going to need childcare. So we found out here's what parents wake up wondering: can I trust you? Will my child be safe? Will my child be loved? Is this financially responsible for our family? So the challenge wasn't generating interest, it was dissolving fear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the interest was there. Most centers try to solve that with brochures and bullet points and college degrees and credentials. We solved it with belief building. After we convince them we're believable, then we deal with other issues like beating the competition and creating an affordability value paradigm to families, and making them comfortable that they're going to get superior care and value at a price they can afford. We had a great USP, and I assume most of your audiences know what a USP is, a unique selling proposition.
Yeah.
We were teaching 1 year ahead of chronological age, and kids who graduated from our program could go into the public schools, and after testing, many of them skipped the first grade or sometimes even the second grade. Uh, the fact that 100% of our kids, after a time, graduated from high school and went into higher education was really important to a lot of families, because just think, if your college, if you're a high school graduate, can get a scholarship to college, how
Yeah.
much money is that going to save your family? So it's worth a great investment in preschools to get them off on the right foot. And 100% of our uh, graduates from our preschool later on would go to college, and many of them on full ride scholarships.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. We found early on we had to master and manage what we call the tour and the pre-tour process. This became our superpower, and it set us apart from almost all competitors.
Tom, explain to the audience, in your business, in the child care center business, you refer to it as the tour. What is the tour?
Well, Ron, the tour is simply the sales presentation. But most owners, believe it or not, of childcare businesses don't realize that. They think the tour is a casual walk through the building. Excuse me. It's not. What it really is, and what we designed it to be, is a choreographed, structured psychological progression designed to move a parent from uncertainty to confidence. Every room, every talking point, every transition answers an emotional question before it's asked. And it's important because, in effect, we know what they are thinking. Sometimes we know what they're thinking before they're actually thinking it. So that really put us in an advantage. My wife, MJ, became so expert at this and trained others so well that we were getting an 80% conversion rate when others were lucky to get 30% conversions. And that's what we came to call tour engineering, where we depended on the process and the systems we developed instead of luck.
Yeah. Again, I want to, point out something. He said answering the questions that they had oftentimes before they even thought about it. The key on that is, for any of us, see, we do this every day. You do what you do, Tom. MJ did what she did in giving the tour. Whereas the families coming in, especially if it was a first-time child, they hadn't done this before. So they're really feeling their way along this. And I think you'd agree, because it's consistent with any business where there's a sales process in there. The first time somebody has this conversation to solve a problem, they don't know what to ask. And if you're the first one in the process, if you're the first one they're seeing or talking to, it's a learning experience for that prospect, because they're like, oh, I didn't think about that. And then what they do is, because they didn't think about it and didn't get it answered at that point, they go and they shop and they talk to another one and they talk to another one and they talk to another one, which is why oftentimes they buy from the last one they talk to.
That's right.
So let me close the loop on that. If you know what it is they should be asking, and you know what is important to them before they even know it, and you cover those points, even if they go and they research someone else and they shop someone else, if you're thorough and you know what you're doing and you structure it as you called it, tour engineering, they go and see somebody else, they're now all going to be measured by you, because you've given them so much information they weren't even aware of. And if that other place doesn't do it, guess what? We've created proof that you know what the heck you're talking about. You got experience in this. So just to close the loop on that, for people to understand, not just in the childcare business, but in business altogether. And every business at some point in time does a sales presentation, sales talk. In this case, it's the tour. So this is something that every business needs to understand. So Tom, let's focus on the attractive and qualifying part of it. How did you attract and qualify families to become buyers?
Well, first of all, I want to say, Ron, that it is a challenge for every business. Every business faces this. How do you get the clients, customers, or buyers that you want? And in our case, we knew everything about the prospective family. We researched them. We knew what kind of jobs they had. We knew how much money they made. We knew how many children they had. We knew where they lived. We knew what their house was worth.
Wow.
We knew whether they were going to come in and be able to write a check or whether they were going to need financial assistance. We knew whether they were a single mother or a married couple. We knew everything about them. So we were at a tremendous advantage. It was like they weren't presenting themselves for the first time. We had actually done our homework on each family that came in there. We knew them better than they knew us. So we were in command of the whole process. In the main, I said our superpower. In my opinion, our superpower was knowing our customers generically and specifically at a deep emotional level. And this is particularly true in the childcare business because you're dealing with a family's most cherished possession, their children. Buying anything for any of us is first an emotional decision. We have to understand that. In our case, parents didn't make these decisions intellectually first. They make them emotionally first and then rationalize them second. Their subconscious checklist kind of goes like this. Is my child safe here? Will my child be emotionally cared for? Do these people feel competent and calm? Calm is really important. You can't be in a chaotic state of mind and sell somebody on anything. You've got to be calm. You got to know your game. You got to be on top of your game, and you have to communicate that to your potential customer. And do I feel respected as a parent? They in effect were interviewing for us. We weren't interviewing them and trying to persuade them. We had to show them the utmost respect and that we appreciated them and that we wanted to help them and that we valued them. I don't even know if I should bring this up, but we wanted them to understand, even if it was just emotionally, that if necessary, every adult in our building would give their life for that child if necessary. So we needed to communicate like we were a member of their family. We really cared about them.
Yeah.
If these boxes aren't all checked, no accreditation in the world is going to close that gap. The emotional brain decides, the logical brain justifies. Limbic system first, cortex second. That's what's going on inside of a parent. And it's the same way with almost any industry.
Yeah.
You and I once had a discussion about why somebody buys a Rolls Royce. Emotion first, logic second. No one logically needs a Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
There are only people who can afford them.
Yeah. Yeah. You 100%. Those watching, did I tell you that this guy knows his stuff? He's got experience in this. We're going to break here and pick up the conversation with Tom Runfola on the next episode of the One Thing Business Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in. I'm sure you got a lot from this episode. Join Ron and his next guest here on the One Thing Podcast.